Welcome to the Love is the Cure Foundation podcast. We like to say conversations. Inigo liked conversations.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. In today's conversation, we are talking to Rabbi Susan Harris from Boston Children's Hospital. Rabbi Susan was our chaplain during Inigo's cancer journey. She also happens to be the head chaplain at BCH, which makes us feel really important that she's our chaplain.
We're so lucky.
Yeah, pretty cool. For some of you that know us, this would seem like an odd pairing. For many of you that have followed our story or read some of our written journals, you understand how Jesus-centric a Christian family that we are. And so here we are with our rabbi. It does seem odd, but we are so thankful that Rabbi Susan is our friend, and especially through this moment, she was a stabilizing voice for us. She presented as a person of calm, which is difficult for us to be calm as we're dealing with these things. We felt that she has always understood our foundational faith tradition in a way that never made us feel oddly matched. Beyond our personal feelings of warmth for her, Rabbi Susan is a wealth of knowledge. It is important to understand as parents that we'll be helping your child through their own medical crisis, that the chaplain service at the hospital will be available to you. It is an important human connection therapy. So as we speak with Rabbi Susan Harris today, we hope that you can glean some hope in knowing that someone of faith will be there by your side as an extra support. Rabbi Susan, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to start it right off with a few questions for you, and hopefully they'll be easy. So, basic questions. What is your job description, even though I sort of laid it out already?
So, I'm the director of spiritual care, and even in that, is an important distinction. I like to say I'm the last director of chaplaincy and the first director of spiritual care. We definitely made that change in nomenclature because if you look at what spirituality is, what spiritual care is, people have many different ways of making meaning. People have many different foundations upon which they base their life. For some people, the language of spirituality is one of religion. Other people may speak different languages. So religion is but one of many languages. I would say when it comes to faith, some faith is expressed in theological and religious terms. Some faith just boils down to not being nihilistic and just that what we do matters. For some people, that is their faith. And so that is something that's a double-edged sword. Maybe that's the wrong, maybe too militaristic of a metaphor. It's an advantage and a disadvantage. But in my practice, I am definitely the minority religion, but I have spent my adult life trying to understand and be respectful and embracing of people of faith. So we did not have a relationship based on religion, but we did have one based on an understanding and respect that a person has for their religion and how they make meaning.
Absolutely. And that's, I'm so glad you said it like that, because that's probably the main trait that we saw within you and how you interacted with us in a way that allowed us to feel safe. I think when parents are first approached, okay, so maybe we should lay it out. Parents, when your child goes inpatient, your nurse usually will go through a list and they will ask, do you want spiritual services or chaplaincy service to come and see you? And so in many of those instances, you will divulge what your religion is. And Rabbi Susan, correct me if I'm incorrect here. Once you divulge what your religion is, are you matched up with a spiritual guide, or since it's non-denominational, does that matter?
So it matters sometimes, and I'll tell you how. I can only tell you how we work. We've talked offline about how I think my approach is not as usual. Most of the time, when people are asked upon admission, do you want to see a chaplain? First of all, many people don't know what a chaplain is. And if they do know, usually they don't want to see that chaplain. It doesn't tell them anything about, like, they don't know who we are. I mean, it needs to be an in the moment decision, not as a category. So it's not the case with with you, but it is often the case when I meet parents of very young children who haven't, and I'm going to say this in quotes, practiced their religion since confirmation or religious school. And they are definitely not practicing it. They may be very disaffected. And they'll tell me when I ask, do you have a religious preference? They'll tell me about their parents. Like they don't own it. Sometimes I see Catholic families who have stopped going to church, and this is Boston, and we know all of those reasons. And they are absolutely relieved that I'm not a Catholic chaplain.
Sure.
Other people, and this is absolutely true for most Jewish patients, they don't want to see a priest. They don't want to see a Christian chaplain, because as Jewish people, we have been on the receiving end of a lot of proselytizing.
Sure.
And same with Muslim patients. So Jewish and Muslim patients we just start with being faith specific. When I meet a Catholic chaplain, I want to know if a Catholic chaplain would be helpful to them. I don't take it personally, but we don't start there. We try to make the best match possible. And so that's one of the things that I'm assessing when I'm there. Does this family speak Catholic? Does this do I need to help a Latter-day Saint, a Mormon family find an elder? All of those things. So there are different ways of delivering spiritual care, and one is just being a connector. So I would say, you would probably agree, that our relationship changed over time. It needs to be built. And a chaplain can't just waltz in there with all of the answers. And I hope I never waltzed in with any answers. But it like all relationships, it builds over time. And anyway, the answer to your question, I'm going to say, is yes or no. I forgot what the question was.
I think Lindy and I feel like we won a lottery with you. And while we're speaking about faith, I think that's the best way to say it. But it may have been, and we've thought about this often. A full disclosure to anyone watching, we are Sabbath keeping Christians. And
the Sabbath to us means the seventh day of the week, Saturday, the Sabbath, not Sunday. So we're different in that respect to a lot of other Christians that worship on Sunday. We celebrate on Saturday.
So we wonder if our nurse was cued in on that. As it's so difficult to remember the very genesis of Inigo's diagnosis and everything that was talked about with the team, and but clearly someone understood that we were Sabbath keepers, and I think it was on that question of what faith are you? Do you want chaplain services to come and see you? That sort of thing, and we may have divulged we are Sabbath keepers, which is interesting that you said what you did, because we honestly, and this is no, I think you kind of already mentioned this, but it would have made us nervous to have a priest. It would have made us nervous because we are always nervous about people understanding where we come from, because as Sabbath keeping Christians, we are an oddity to most. And I think Sabbath keeping Jews see us as an oddity, and I think that Christians see us as an oddity. So we're kind of we're always careful in what outreach that we're looking from spiritual services in any type of setting that we're in. And so I think it's wonderful that you mention that you understand that feeling of why maybe a Jewish family wouldn't be comfortable with a priest or otherwise. And I think that's something that we really came to realize ourselves in our relationship with you, that as we would go through our normal routines for welcoming the Sabbath on Friday, we were blessed to have you walk into that room and know exactly what we were preparing for the next 24 hours. So that's why we say we won a lottery, but it's really, we feel blessed that we were given someone that connected with us on a level of just humanity, where you understood where we were coming from, you understood what our faith tradition was, and in many ways, we love the fact that you took part in it. And I think that is a blessing of what you all do in your work there with kids. And I would assume that that's something that you as a team make sure that you are trying to connect with each family's particular spiritual needs or spiritual tradition.
There are so many losses of being in the hospital. You're separated from your dog, from your home, from all of your routines, all of that. And it was important to me, both personally, but also in my role as a chaplain, that you were able to have as much of a Sabbath here as possible. And I will say, for me personally, there was a sweetness every Friday afternoon when we had a visit, and to be able to be invited into that moment, not just help maybe create a little oasis, but to be invited into the oasis for just a little bit of time, was a very powerful connection for me as well. And how to say, I want families to have their observances and rituals in the most authentic way possible for them, not for me, for them. And I think that is important, and each of the chaplains here does that in different way, and we each make different connections. And however this worked out, this was a very powerful connection and a natural one. It's lovely to look at the same thing, but from very different perspectives. And I would say, just objectively speaking, in this hospital, there are not a lot of Sabbath observers, and I'm including all the people generously who might fit into that pool. And to have any kind of sense of community here is quite an extraordinary gift.
We were honored by what you did for us and how you made it our home away from home every week. So
yeah, I think you explained to us one time to be aware that it was going to be difficult to differentiate when Friday afternoon arrived, because it was just going to feel like a run-on And you said, what I would suggest, I know you're going to have a lot of stuff going on, you said to us, but what I would suggest on Sabbath is just to try to find some rest. And I remember Lindy and I interacted with this idea of like, ooh, how do we do that in an environment where no one cares about giving you rest, you know?
And you always have to be turned on for your child with all of the medical staff and making decisions. And yeah, how?
That door opens and it's a showtime, right? You've got to be ready to talk to people. Yeah. And I think one of the most freeing things that you did for us was it's something that we know, of course, but when you hear it from someone that we respect because of your wisdom and what you have done in your life's work, it felt like a pass to understand that we are in a system of constant work and constant flow, but do not be afraid to set up your boundaries of needing a rest, because there's a reason why that was set up for us. And for you to say that to us, it felt so good, because that felt like home to us, because that's how we understand rest, you know. And so to hear you say that to us, to be acknowledged in a way where we said, oh yeah, that's right, for whatever that's going to happen here, we can still hold on to something that we have always raised Inigo with. And Inigo was the type that we didn't raise him like this. He never saw the day of rest as a burden. He saw it as the funnest day of that week. It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna, cool out. We're gonna be in the yard, in the garden, just relaxing, talking, reading to each other, that sort of stuff.
Eat good food.
He's
big on food.
Yeah. So for him, the day of rest is a blessing to him. And for us to tell him, even at those earliest stages when he couldn't speak yet,
yeah,
where we could talk to him, and all of a sudden he saw someone acknowledging that, yeah, this is our day of rest. I think for a child that was in the fog of war, I would say, it felt, oh, something feels natural here.
Well, one of the things this is going to sound simplistic, but it's not. Families come here, they're in crisis. I see this all the time. They forget the most basic things about who they are. You did not forget that in any way, but it was hard to figure out how to do that here. It wasn't hard I think it was less hard for Inigo, because he wasn't having to manage the door and all of that. Like he only had one rule to be himself. And sometimes people need to be reminded by just the request, just stop and remember what it is that you do when things are tough. Because everyone knows, but they just get so disconnected from it, because there are so many immediate demands, one after another. And if I can help people remember who they are, I can't tell them who they are, but I can help them remember who they are, then they have a chance to recreate as much of that rhythm and time that is possible. And I think that your family did an excellent job of doing that. And it was really challenging. It seems really simple, not so simple.
Exactly. And that is really something that we want to get across to parents. When you end up in a situation like this, sometimes you want to segment it into certain things. You want to segment into diagnosis, and then some people are very analytical and they want to start, okay, we're going to do this, and this is how we're going to do this, and this is how we're going to do this. And then you have other people that the whole world is burning down. None of those approaches is wrong. Each of
Right.
those approaches have validity to them. What we realized is that for our family, and we think a lot of other families too, we all have natural structures. And I think that's what you're saying. We have these
Yeah.
natural rhythms that we all live. I think what was wonderful, and once again, correct me if I'm wrong, what was wonderful about what you offered us in spiritual services was the idea to realize, keep your natural rhythms as much as possible, because you can't control anything else. And so if you can at least reconnect with your spiritual rhythms, something may seem smoother for you. And that's something that Lindy and I have constantly talked about, is understanding that in a moment of crisis. Lindy's a nurse. She's in the medical field. She understands how this process works. But when it's your own child,
yeah, things changed.
Things change. And so to understand, to hear you say to us, keep your natural rhythm with the Sabbath, try to connect with that rest, enabled us to realize, oh, absolutely. Wait a second. If that's what we have always formed as our life's compass,
Yes.
why would we ever lose that in this moment when we need a compass more than any other moment?
Yeah, you don't need one more loss.
No.
Right. Well, very well said. And I'm hoping that many different families from all walks of life listen to this. And I'm not sure whether you're aware of this or not. You are very thoughtful people. You wrestled with big questions even before you were parents. You were engaged with ideas, with faith, with meaning, with ultimate meaning. There are some families who are wonderful people, but who haven't cultivated inner resources. And those people, I can't say that they have a rougher time. They have a different time. And the kind of spiritual care and holding that they need feels and looks very different. But at its core, what spiritual care is witnessing and respecting and upholding the dignity of the patient and the parents and who they are as a family. And that doesn't require a church or a synagogue. Like it's a common meeting ground. And but I do want to say that people who have been engaged with their faith tradition, and they also have other struggles that other families don't. I mean, there can be some very challenging questions that, like, you have to live into your questions. And every room that I walk into, it's like a theological existential laboratory. Everyone is facing exactly the same problem, and every family is handling it completely differently.
Yeah, she's an anthropologist. We've talked about you. we can't imagine. I think Lindy said it one time. We were discussing exactly this topic, and she said, Rabbi Susan walks into every room and it's different in every single room. And I go, no, we're all dealing with the same cancer or tumors or whatever the case may be. And she says, no. Yeah. It's the process in which that family is dealing with it is different. And that's where the mental gymnastics of the chaplains have to come into play. They have to be adaptable. And so.
Yeah, it is all different. So I think, we're talking a lot about people who maybe have a faith that they're following and living by. But what are some of the things that you often encounter with maybe families who don't consider themselves people of faith? They consider themselves more of philosophy or, common sense, or how do you engage those families? Because we definitely want to encourage them to access this service that we know we benefited from, and we realize that it has so much more help to offer to everyone. It's not just focused on people like us who have a religious faith.
Good question. I think so. I'll kind of back into that question. I think that well, especially at Boston Children's Hospital, I love it when families are here for a short stay, and sometimes I remember one family that the son had a broken leg, and it was serious enough to be in the hospital, but not serious enough that when he was healed, his life would not go on exactly as it was. But I see parents who get a glimpse of what might have been. It could have been much worse than that, and they are existential. The rug is taken out from underneath, and that's one kind of conversation, and they need someone other than their child to be able to say, their worst fears and their greatest hopes. There are other times when my visits, it doesn't take it, they're small talk, and they're small talk day after day, week after week, until something happens, and then all of those details align, and we know each other well enough, and we can talk about, it's clear, like a kaleidoscope, like something coming into focus, like what the problem is. But all of this is contingent upon relationship. So for people who, this is both with the faith system and without, when people won't let go of the why is this happening question. And when that question is about them and not about their child, like whatever's happening to their child, they make it a problem about what did I do. And I, don't ever have any answers, but I reflect back to them that in this moment that may not be a helpful question. I would never take away that question from them, but it may be more helpful to focus on this is happening. What is our response going to be? Mm-hmm. So there are many people whose mantra for difficult situations, people of faith, people completely secular, is the very unexamined, everything happens for a reason. Well, I'm not going to have an argument with that person. Mm-hmm. I'm not, if that is where their hope resides, that is fine. If the reason is so far in the future that it's not affecting the present, but I'm talking about, sometimes parents have very specific things that they feel guilty about. And that is a really difficult situation to be in. And it falls through all of the cracks of nursing and conversations with doctors, and even of social work. On a less serious note, sometimes what will allow a family to stop vibrating and be able to be fully present is to tell them where the gym is. And that's one of my, or to give them a running route. or to tell them where they can get hot yoga. Like those are expressions of a spiritual need. I look at it as integrating body and mind. I feel very strongly about proselytizing in any shape, manner, or form. But I would say that sometimes I feel like what a chaplain does is to lead from behind. I don't think I answered the question. That's the best.
No, that's a pretty deep statement.
We're just thinking
I love that.
about it.
Yeah. I'm gonna ruminate over that one for a while, but to lead from behind.
To lead from behind, yeah, because I do want to support people, but I don't support them blindly. I mean, there are some, if people think that they are being punished and are welcoming the punishment, you can think whatever you want, adult, but there's a child in this bed. And sometimes I see some toxic parenting and I see some heroic parenting. And sometimes my intervention will be, this one grandmother was in the window seat talking to friends as if the adolescent in the bed couldn't hear anything. Like her voice filled the room. And she was complaining about the doctors and about her husband who had died of cancer, and why does her grandson have it now? Just all of these. I was like this listening to it, and he was bathed in it all day. And I did suggest to her that she should take that discontent and anxiety out of the room and have those conversations, not so where her grandson had to listen to it, which she did, but she was really pissed at me. And I'm fine with that. Like, I may not have been as skillful as possible, but I would say that there are a few things that I know, and that sometimes parents respond better when they know what their task is. They can't do any of the things that the doctors and nurses do. Many times they can't care for their child the way they are able to at home. I'm thinking of particularly infants who can't even be picked up. Your job is to be a non-anxious presence. Your job is to let your child know that you're here, let them hear your voice, read to them, talk to them. Like, it makes a difference. Like, and how parents are able to hold hope, which I'm not sure that's on the punch list, but I want to just take a moment about that. I hope this didn't happen to you. Every unit has a different culture. Some doctors bludgeon parents over the head with medical information, and they say if the parents have any kinds of hopes, they label them as false hopes. And they keep bludgeoning them with information. They're just going to beat the hope out of them, because if they have hope that the doctors feel contradict what the prognosis is, their parents are delusional. I strongly object. I think there are hopes that are concrete, but I also think hope is a verb. It is a stance. It is to meet everything that happens through a lens of hope. And that can and in my opinion should be communicated to the patient as well. There is hope for the next 5 minutes, for the afternoon, for the day, the week. Their hope is always transmuting, but there's never no hope. There's even hope of how we are going to be in the present moment. And hope is a conversation that I hope that chaplains are good about entering into, because I think it is a crucial one for families and for patients. And whether there is a cure or not, there's still the possibility of healing, and hope is absolutely essential to that.
Yeah, we agree with that wholeheartedly.
That's our mantra. I mean, our mantra is that we never gave up hope. The name of the Love is a Cure Foundation is based on hope, and it's this constant desire to make sure that we are grounded in a hope mentality. That's our faith as well. And
I just as with our understanding of the Sabbath, I completely embrace. We may have different characteristics, but I completely embrace that vision of hope and its importance and necessity.
Yeah, I want to go back to something that you said in that the neuro-oncology floor.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were blessed with a floor that was a floor filled with staff that will not crush your hope. Whether they have hope or they don't have hope, I don't think we ever connected with that. However, it's almost more important to make sure that you are not crushing someone's hope or the possibility of hope. Now, the problem with our particular family is that we are realists, and especially with Lindy being in the medical field, we had a inkling of the outcome of Inigo's diagnosis. That being said, we never gave up hope of the possibilities of things happening. This world is a crazy place, and things happen that we don't have answers for. So just as we realized that we would never blame something without facts or evidence, we also knew that our desire to keep hope through whatever realist views we had, or honest, maybe I should say honest, views we had about Inigo's diagnosis, we never gave up hope.
Agreed. That's what I both observed, and I think that there's a tension there, but I'm just going to say I'm all in for hope in however it is articulated, and again, I don't. So sometimes when hope is very reified, I mean, my least favorite thing to do is when almost with a gesture of go pray. It like when it's clear the parent's not going to be involved, they just want this done for the kid, and they basically give me a punch list of things to pray for, like a to-do list. I'm thinking, I don't think that's how it works. Yeah. Like I just don't think that's how it works. And so when hope is reified into a punch list, like, okay, I'm not arguing with anyone, but I do think hope is a stance. It's a worldview, it's a vision, and it is dynamic.
Yeah. So we assume that there is some pressure felt with the chaplaincy, and how do you deal with that pressure when it's expected of you to serve people's spiritual needs?
You're
Like
the leader.
churches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you talk about leading from behind, it's really interesting because I think as society, as Lindy's saying, we see you as a Moses, right? That's how I think people view their priests. That's how people view their pastors. That's how people view their rabbis. We have a real respect for your wisdom and for what you know. Like Lindy said, how do you deal with because that's pressure. Man, I think that might be a 2-part question. How do you deal with it, and how do you help your team deal with it? Team members that maybe have not done this with the amount of experience that you have, that may not view it the way that you do, or they don't have the experience to view it like you do.
So I am well aware of the difference between what a clergy person does in the context of a church or synagogue or mosque and what a chaplain does here. No one here, so I'll narrow down to the Jewish patients for a moment. I am a rabbi, but I am not the rabbi for these families. And although I can answer questions of Sabbath observance here, who Orthodox Jews need to hear the answer from is their rabbi, not my rabbi. That being said, I have a different one. I don't have a need to be that person. I don't need to be that person. And secondly, there is a freedom between me and families because I'm not that person. I'm not going to see them at church or at synagogue. I'm not going to be a reminder of this time or of things that they've disclosed to me that they don't want to disclose to their clergy person, who they have to see week after week. I may have said this to you before. Our strength is that we are strangers on the bus. And you can say lots of things to the stranger on the bus that you don't say to your best friends. And the other thing that I appreciate about the role of a chaplain versus, I would say, community public facing clergy is our strength lies in our ability to be authentic. And I am aware that I'm not everybody's taste, and yay, we have a large department, and it doesn't have to be me. Like I'm not interested in being the person for everyone. I'm interested in being the person for whom I can be the right person for. And I love how different we are. And sometimes I'll ask a colleague to go see someone because I think they'll be a much better fit. So one of the difficult things is, honestly, I say it with this gesture of the finger, like pointing, go do this. That is my least favorite relationship with someone. And it's not something to fight about. And if it makes that person feel better or more whole and complete to be able to be that way, great. I'm happy to do that. What's difficult is the medical system. It is, I hate it when kids' time is wasted because of inefficiencies. I hate it for the extra worry it causes families. I hate it when someone isn't considerate and doesn't have an interpreter available during really difficult times. I find it very difficult to be part of a system that fails in so many ways. And I am thrilled beyond belief to see the incredible progress that we make. Like, it is a deeply imperfect system that does incredible things. But that is one of the difficult things for me, is to think so highly of the people who work here. And I'm not, yes, at this hospital, but just in general. And when we miss the mark, just knowing how much potential, how much better we are than that, it just really upsets me.
I think one of the most important things that you're saying is that you're aware of that.
Yeah.
That you're aware. I think so many times we work in systems and we want to simply, no, this isn't really true, but we want to say outwardly that we're an awesome system. And we'll say a lot of things inwardly. It doesn't necessarily point to that same truth. And I think it's so important, if the system is aware that they have things to fix, I think that becomes a much healthier system. And we can, we will eventually talk more and more about our story. We will avoid talking about maybe some of the issues that we felt with the system
failures.
But I think it's so important to hear from you the awareness that you, and I'm sure others within the system too, know that you may be lacking in certain areas that you could sharpen up, make better.
Yes, I would, but I had to say, I don't say this from the stance of gotcha, No, the people who work here, no one works here who doesn't want to work here, and people are so devoted to the kids and the families. But we are very siloed when it comes to communication, and that is one thing that a chaplain can do. I can talk to anybody, and I will say our superpower is that we don't have any power. It's like, what are they going to do? If I speak up, like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do?
Yeah.
Nothing.
That is very freeing. I would say that's pretty good. I know we are running out of time with you. We do want to cover just
one last one, just because
a couple more last ones. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, just because you were with us through our whole journey with Inigo, and just talking about continuity of care. You receive that from nursing and medical staff and therapy, but we also received that from you, and that felt very important to us because we established the connection early on with you. We looked forward each time that, we had to be impatient with Inigo, that we would get the chance to see you, and you were, it wasn't someone else, that we had to learn or like.
We hated when you went on vacation. We'll just say that.
Just because the added stress of like, having to, I guess, meet a new person and have to get used to like, what is their approach, and like, they're looking to help you, and like, what am I going to need to give them? So, during our entire journey, you were our chaplain, and that was just really important to us and making us feel safe. So what's the thought process behind making sure that a family is followed by a single chaplain through their entire process? Or is it a misconception? Is it a team effort, or where the chaplains can serve one family as needed, or how does it work?
I think our preference is one, is the kind of relationship that we had. Sometimes I share an ICU with another chaplain, and sometimes we take advantage of how different we are, and it's not, how to say, it shouldn't be ego driven to say, like, I'm going on vacation, you're not going to have a chaplain for 2 weeks because I'm the only person who can. No. I sometimes, for instance, in the cardiac ICU, which is a very different vibe than where you were. My partner and I, we have very different relationships with the family, and they might have preferences, and certainly we have preferences. But if they need someone, it's more important to me that someone is available to them to answer the call than they can only have me. Like, so it's a little bit driven by scheduling, by needs, by availability. We had a family. I had a better relationship with this parent. She had a better relationship with that parent. I can recall times we would be having different conversations and then we would come back together. But most of the time, having one person is what's best. But occasionally, what I care is about continuity of care, and sometimes that entails more than one person. But we're not interchangeable. I mean, we are and we aren't. Like, I don't think anyone.
Yeah, and I hate to sound selfish, but we, when we would be inpatient and we would find out you may have been off service for some reason, we would just request no chaplain services, and only because we had established a rapport with you, a relationship with you.
Yeah.
We also are the type of family that our faith is such that it's not why we had a relationship with you.
Right.
We didn't have the relationship with you because we felt, oh no, this is our moment where we need an advocate between a greater power or something like that. Number one, we don't believe like that. Number two, that's not why our human connection to you happened. And because of that, it usually was, if Rabbi Susan is around, then that's all good. We'll be okay. And we feel secure in that because there was, like I said, there's a specific reason why we had a relationship with you. And we wanted, when you weren't around, we would just continue deeply to focus on Inigo. And when you were around, we would do the same. He also, we felt, was very comfortable with you as a person. I'll tell one story. In the earlier months, Inigo still couldn't walk or talk or any of that sort of stuff. He was still in bed. We were about to welcome the Sabbath on a Friday evening. We hadn't seen Rabbi Susan all day. So we said, okay, maybe busy today, maybe she's off service. Rabbi Susan always made a point to come see us on Friday and gift us with a challah bread, which every Friday we go looking for a challah bread now. And so it was just a special token of togetherness, human connection, appreciation, I will even say love. And to have that connection was really wonderful. Friday evening, we haven't seen Rabbi Susan all day. No problem. We were going to continue with our Sabbath, and we're just about to have Sabbath evening prayer, and Rabbi Susan walks in, and she's got a challah bread, and this and that. But we can tell she's got to get going. Like she's probably been super tied up somewhere. She's got to get off the clock. She needs to get out of there, and so she comes in. But as Rabbi Susan always did, whether fast-footing it through your room or taking her time, either way, you always knew she was on a mission. And so she comes into the room, and it was a special time for us because Inigo's brain was starting to wake up a bit from posterior fossa syndrome. So we were having more responses to certain indicator questions. More was coming out, and we were so happy. Inigo never lost his laughter through it. We could always joke and make him laugh, but his controlled responses were finally starting to come back. And that was the very same week where he started to move his hands again. He could thumbs up, or if he didn't want somebody in the room, he would chop them out of the room. He would ask, he would go like this. And,
see you later.
See you later. Time for you to go. So Rabbi Susan walks in, and we were in this moment of happiness, gratitude, because we were starting to see our little boy come out of this fog that he was in, and he had finished radiation, and we're getting ready to head off to Spalding. We understand the team is getting the transfer prepared and trying to see when they can get us in. And I say, Rabbi Susan, perfect. We're just about to pray. Can you give the blessing for us? And Rabbi Susan says, oh, absolutely. And maybe this was a moment where she's used to people saying, please do a blessing for me or something. And it was perfect for us. Rabbi Susan, she gathers at the foot of Inigo's bed, and Lindy's on one side and I'm at the other, and Inigo's sitting up, and he's like, you could see on his face, he couldn't talk yet, but you could see on his face, he's very excited about this moment because this is different for him. Something strange is happening. Dad has asked someone else to give the Sabbath prayer. So Rabbi Susan at the foot of his bed goes right into a prayer, a Psalms.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. And it was in Hebrew. Right? Yeah.
I think first in English and then in Hebrew.
Hebrew, then in English. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she goes into it, and all of a sudden, Lindy and I, eyes closed. Rabbi Susan, she's really giving it gusto. This is my last one for the day. I'm out of here. And she's getting into it, and it's just, we're just loving it. And then and all of a sudden, we hear heads bowed, eyes closed, and we hear giggling and giggling. And we turn and look, and there's Inigo giggling because he can't understand Rabbi Susan's Hebrew.
He just realized, wait a minute, this is different. This is kind of funny.
This is fantastic. And so for us, we thought it was such a beautiful human moment of a child knowing we're having Sabbath prayer, we're accepting the Sabbath, and we're going into a different time. And yet that human moment of, I got to giggle through this. This is new to me. I like this. It's tickling my ear. And it felt so good, Rabbi Susan, because it took this moment of reverence and accepting the Sabbath and made it even more real. That here this little boy is waking up and his mind is becoming clear.
And all he has had is his laugh through this. He lost all his voluntary functions, and he always maintained his laugh. So when we heard that, we knew he was having some cognition of this moment and what was
cognition,
happening.
Yeah. So beautiful. And for us, it cemented our relationship with you in so many ways, because what you did is you just kept right going. You finished it, and then you went into the English version of it. And then he, excuse me. And then he put his head down and, go ahead. And he finished listening to you. And we have talked about that so many times, because I think so many times in all of our lives, we take religion, faith, whatever it is that we believe in, and we etherealize it into things that are tradition and structure and this and that, the other, that have very little true human connection. And here we were watching in real time the rebirth of Inigo's brain, cognitively processing, I know what this is. It's funny because I don't understand it. But I'm going to calm it down because now I can understand it. Processing that through, and then coming out the other side. And for us, it felt so real. It felt like, religion, faith, this, that, the other. It's not so ethereal. Sometimes it's simply about listening, laughing, processing. And as we do that, if we can do that on a human level, these moments will become more real to us. Our faith will become more interconnected with our beings. And it was just so wonderful that we had that experience with you, because it has meant the world to us.
If you were to ask me what the best thing about my work, I'm not even going to say job, my work, is the privilege to be part of moments like that. Period. There is a space that people make for one another to share like that, which we co-create, to be able to recognize that. It has, each encounter changes me. It's not like I'm a static person with these experiences passing through. Like I am changed. And I would say, even, with my own family, my own children, those moments can sometimes be few and far between. And, where there is love, where there is connection and relationship, there are many different kinds of love, just like love is also a stance, as is hope. And I was like, I fall in love with my patients and families all the time. And it's not a limited resource, it's an unlimited resource. And to me, those moments are just the whole point.
We just love that. I think, we know we need to let you go, but we appreciated how you walked this journey with us. One of the things that we like to tell parents is to understand that this journey with your child is going to be different stages. There's going to be a middle, there's going to be a beginning, of course, and there's going to be an end. There's going to be a land the plane moment for this experience. If you can understand that each of those stages requires different connectivity, that is what you need to try to do as a parent going through these experiences. Our experience with you at the beginning was different than it was in the middle, and then it was different than it was when we landed the plane.
Yeah.
I think if we can help parents understand that process, understand that this is not a linear process. There's going to be lots of different hills and valleys as you go through this. And the better that you can help yourself to not be hard on yourself and understand, ride those valleys, climb those hills, understand this is not going to be a comfortable, even journey. And if you are not a spiritual person, if you're not a religious person, if you're an atheist, if you don't believe in anything, reach out to chaplain services, reach out to spiritual services, because it's the human connection. It is the therapy without having a therapist. And I'm sorry to put that on you, Rabbi Susan, but it's the absolute truth. It's the understanding that we all need people to talk to. And sometimes it's not your therapist. And sometimes it's not your nurse. And sometimes it's not your doctor. Sometimes it is the chaplain that walks in that room. And they are there not to judge you, not to put aspersions on you or your family. They are there to make a human connection with you. Mm-hmm. And I would say it is the only service in the hospital that is meant.
That's focused on that alone. It may be the only person that you have that connection with in the whole hospital.
Yeah, and it is absolutely important. So that is what we want to make sure that we get across to others as we try to impart practical information on other parents is reach out to chaplain services, reach out to spiritual services for the human connection that you will receive out of it. We don't know your other chaplains, but if they're anything like you, Rabbi Susan, and you being the director, I know you're not a micromanager, but I know that you know your team. And, I think you said this once upon a time, you are not that lovey-dovey, gonna hang on you type of chaplain, but it's exactly what our family needed. And it was wonderful. And so we really suggest to people, right after you talk to your nurse and your nurse goes through that rundown, and they're going to ask you all sorts of specific things, they're going to get to that question that says, do you want chaplain services to come see you? Say yes, even if you will eventually say no. just give it a try. And if you don't do it on the first intake, try the second intake or try on the third intake. One of those times it's going to click because it's exactly what you will need as a parent. And that's what we would advocate for.
Yeah.
The human connection, the wisdom that these people have is valuable. And for you, another person that you can lay your burdens upon and discuss things with that you wouldn't otherwise.
I thank you for that. I often describe, and we share admiration for the same team of people. I know your care team well, and I will say, unlike the rest of your care team, I don't do anything.
What you do?
That's
Well, no,
just so everyone
but I don't have
understands, that's
anything.
Rabbi Susan. Exactly that statement. It's perfect.
But what I mean, I can't fix anything. I don't prescribe anything. I don't have any resources to give. I do dispense carbohydrates. We've established that. But so all that I have to give is myself. Like it's just it's very simple. People aren't simple, but it. Unlike sometimes in crisis when there's a therapist, in the hospital in particular, there's kind of a lens of pathology that we view things through. That also doesn't exist. So you have given people very high expectations. I'm gonna judiciously lower them, but also know that when that relationship exists, it can create so much space and bring so much, it can change how we enter the present. It can't change the present, but it changes how we enter the present. Mm-hmm. And that can be very sustaining and energizing.
I think that's the perfect place to close this out on.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you, Rabbi Susan. You live in our hearts. You are part of us. You are our people, is what we like to say. So we want to thank you for speaking with us and imparting your wisdom once again, as you always do. I think it's so important for all of us to realize that if we all can move through this life in service to one another, we can try to create a better environment for each of us as we live through a crazy world where your kids will get sick, where you will have a difficulty dealing with it, you will not understand how to process it, and in very many ways we need each other to be in service to one another, and that in many ways can help each of us get through these ultra difficult times. So thank you again, Rabbi Susan.
It's been an honor, and love to you both.
Thank you. That was our show for today. Thank you for joining the conversation. We hope that in listening to our conversations, you will be able to glean information that can be useful for you. If you find that the Love is the Cure Foundation's podcast would serve someone you know, please share our content and support our cause. Our desire at the Love is the Cure Foundation is to help children and families as they navigate a pediatric brain tumor diagnosis. Our experience is with Inigo's brain cancer diagnosis. Some of our conversations may be specific to brain cancer and the residual effects. That being said, through these conversations, we hope to impart practical information that may be useful to a family that may need it as they journey with their child through a pediatric cancer diagnosis, brain cancer or otherwise. Our conversations will continue as we speak with people from different disciplines within hospitals and other cancer situations. We are a nonprofit charitable organization. If you would like to donate to help the Love is the Cure Foundation, please go to our website, loveisthecurefoundation.org, where you can donate and also read about our story and the outreach that we are doing at the foundation. Thank you. And as we say here at the foundation, go love on someone. We all need it.